Hi, this is Connie with Clicky Chick Creates, and I wanted to make a really fun Easter card for you. And part of this inspiration came from Jen Show. I found her through the Scrap Gals community, and she posted a scrapbook layout using a bunch of 6x6 pads. And it just made me realize I have a bunch of pads I had not used yet. So this pad in particular, I believe this was from last year. Yeah, 2014 Lawn Fawn. Hello Sunshine, and I'm embarrassed to say this was the first time I opened it up, even though I know that I just fell in love with it when I saw it last year. So I already went through and picked a few different papers that I'd like to use for this project. So what I'm going to do is, using my electronic slice cutter, it's a really old system. If you followed any of my blog posts or YouTube videos, you'll know that I use that quite a bit. So it's an old machine. I'm not even going to show you how to use it because it's that old. It's not even something you can find. But what I'm going to do is cut out some oval shapes. You can do this really just using even scissors and outlining an egg shape. And I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I went ahead and cut out my eggs from these 4 different papers. And I'll end up using those eggs probably on a scrapbook layout or maybe some other cards. So I'm going to set those aside. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my craft cardstock and just cut these 8.5 by 11 sheets in half, just to the 5.5 inch mark. All right. And when I do cards, I've learned to start making things in multiples because I end up needing them, and why not? Alright, so getting my scoreboard, and this is the Martha Stewart one, and I'm just gonna take these. This is just going to be a standard A2 size. So I'm just going to score each of these a few times. Get a nice crisp fold on those. Okay, so now we have our 4 bases, and the next thing we're going to do is, I don't want the cardstock showing in the back. I want to do just plain white. So I'm just going to take some of these and trim these down. Just, let's see, what does this measure? 4 1/4. So I'm just going to do these as at 4 inches. Actually, I should do it this way, so I use as much of the paper as possible. All right, so 4 inches that way, 4 inches that way, and then I'll do it 5 inches this way. Actually, is that going to be too big? That's 5.5. The other one will be 5 1/4. Yeah, so 5 is perfect. So I'm just going to make these 4 by 5s. Okay, next what I'm going to do is cut these down. Right, so this will end up being in the back. I might actually need to go smaller than 4 now that I look at that, which I am. I'm just going to take 2 of these and cut off a 1/4 inch. Again, these are just going to be for background so that the shaker is on white as opposed to the craft. I think I called that cardstock earlier, didn't I? Alright, just going to cut off a 1/4 inch there. And I don't want this peeking out the sides. That doesn't need to peek out on the sides. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I'm going to use some foam. I had bought this a while ago just with, I don't know, it was on sale at either Michael's or Target. So I bought this pad a long time ago. I've used it for some other shaker cards that you might recall. So I'm just going to trim and grab a couple of pieces from here. So let me just make sure that's about the same width. All right, that's about the same size as that background, which is perfect, which means it will be smaller than the egg card front. And that's exactly what I want. All right, so there's 2 of them. I'm going to do 2 more. What the foam is going to help do is provide a space for the shaker to be able to shake. All right, so the next thing I need to do, let me set those aside. I need to trim down these to exactly where I'm going to end up wanting them on the card. So I believe the egg is pretty centered. I'm off a little bit. So I'm going to actually go ahead and cut this paper down. I want my egg fairly centered left to right. So what I'm going to do, let me grab my paper cutter again. So I'm actually not even I don't even need to open the arm up on this one. So I want the center of that egg at the 2-inch mark. So if I have my center point about there, because I'm going to end up making this for, let me think, half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. So then I want this, yes, I want this to be 4 inches. So I do want that on the 2-inch mark. So I'll use that later on a project. And then now I do need to measure this out to make sure it is 4 inches. All right, there we go. So it's just a tiny little sliver I needed off of that side. Okay, so I'm going to do it for the rest of my card fronts. Now I need to measure how much to trim off the top. So I think I do want my egg, I don't know if you can see, the card will end about here, and that's still going to be plenty of room for the foam and for the shaker, and I'm actually going to want to put a sentiment across the bottom. So I'm just going to end up trimming off, it should be actually 6 inches right there, yeah, 6 inches. So if the card is 11, half of that is 5.5, I want 1/4 inch, so I need to actually make it 5 1/4. So go this way, and 5 1/4. You know, that looks a little bit, let me think through this. Do we need a big enough space? Yeah, it's gonna have to work. So normally I do mine assembly line, but I'm gonna actually test this one out first to make sure it's looking how I want it to look. Okay, so now with this, I'm actually going to turn this around now. So I want that kind of centered around there. And what I'm going to do is take the eggs that I cut out of there. Actually, I've done one just on plain white cardstock. I'm going to put that right where I'm going to end up wanting that. And I'm holding down my foam. Set that aside. Grab a pen, and I'm actually going to make that hole a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to kind of go around where I want it to go. I want the hole to be a tiny bit bigger, but not too much bigger. And then I'm just going to take my scissors. Actually, I'll take these because these are a little bit easier to work with than big scissors for this project, or for this part of it, I should say. And then I'm just going to cut out the egg. And that's going to give us our opening for the shaker card. I've used my double-sided tape before to create this opening, to just use mounting tape all around, but I just find this is A, cheaper, and B, a little bit easier to work with. So you see, you'll end up covering all of that up, so you won't even see it at all. But before I end up adding and gluing this on, so you can see my spacing, I'm going to probably trim off a little bit on this side just so that it doesn't peek out the other side as well. There we go. So yeah, that'll end up being perfect right there. Okay, but before I glue that on, I actually need to glue on my acetate. So let me grab that. Okay, so I grabbed my acetate. I had bought this 12 by 12 sheet of it at my local scrapbook store. A cool scrapbook store, but I'm so sad they're closing their doors soon. It's a bummer, but anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and cut some pieces out of here. I just need enough to cover that window. So I'm going to cut cut enough for my for a few of these windows here. One of the shaker cards I made a while back, I cut it really narrow. Don't do that. Make sure you leave yourself enough space. So now I'm just going to use, excuse me, some of the Scotch Quick Dry, and I'm just going to go around the edge. So I get something on that one too. Oh my. There we go. So I'm just going to smush that down, make sure that gets sealed in there. And then that one will be perfect. Actually, I guess it doesn't matter which way. I'm going to put the ink side down onto my cardstock, so I'm going to put the glue on this side. I want to make sure to get really close on this one. I'm going to make sure that gets glued down really, really well. That's fine. So I'm going to set this aside and let that dry. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and glue this onto just the cardstock. Okay, so while that dries, I'm going to set that aside as well. What I wanted to do is, I love this, let me see if we can see this. The paper itself says Hello Sunshine, but I'm thinking that would be fantastic to use for the sentiment strips. So I'm envisioning a little, like a 1-inch kind of banner piece coming out of there. So I'm going to trim this down. And I'll trim it at about right here. I think that'll be cute. And I'm just going to cut a little, actually let me use my other scissors with the nicer, finer tip. I'm going to cut a little flag into that. All right, and then I'm just going to stamp on Happy Easter. Actually, maybe I'll use this Blessed Easter. You know what, I think I will. Actually, I think that'll be really pretty. So, and I think what I'm going to do is, I was planning to just stamp it, but I think I'm actually going to heat emboss that. Just going to grab some Versamark. I don't want to use black, I think that's going to be too dark. So I think I'm going to use this clear bark, which is kind of a really pretty rich brown color. Okay, so I am ready to stamp and emboss this. So I'm just using Versamark water stamp, and I'm going to just center this here. And then using, okay, so I apologize, that cut out, but basically all I did was sprinkle the powder, tap off the excess embossing powder, and then put it back into the jar. So now what I need to do is go ahead and heat set this. Now I'm just checking to make sure there's no more powder areas, that it all did set. And the way that you know is when basically the areas all look shiny. And they all look shiny, so everything looks good. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, I say so a lot, don't I? I should stop that. Next, what I'm going to do is go ahead and put that on here. Probably should have centered that now that I look at it, because the sentiment isn't centered. I think it looks a little bit wonky. So I think I am going to end up making a tiny change here. I'm going to come in and make a flag on both sides. And I'm going to end up making this side, oopsie, get off of there. So I think I'm going to actually trim this side down as well. To about there, and bring the flag in a little bit. There we go. And I'm just going to center that one. Some of the other ones I might do a little bit different, but I think, yeah, I like that. So I'm going to, there I go with the sum again. You have to help me stop. I'm just going to add this with some pop dots. I'll just add these little square ones. These are just the Michael's Recollections. Yeah, I like that centered more than it was looking off-centered. All right, so now we're going to get to the fun part. So now, let's see, our card was set aside, this was set aside, and I don't know what the inspiration for this card, I'll be honest. It came to me when I was just thinking back to my childhood and Easter's spent with family and my cousins. We would usually go to this local park near my grandparents' house. And one of the traditions we had was having Easter eggs, and they weren't the plastic shelled eggs filled with things. They were the actual real eggs that were hollowed out, and inside there was tons of confetti, and we would smash them on each other. Um, I don't know if that was a Mexican thing. I don't know if it was a 70s thing. I don't know where the tradition came from, but I think back to it and it makes me kind of laugh now, because now, I mean, we're just so much more cautious, and I don't know, just times are different. But the thought of all the confetti and everything inside the egg made me think to do a shaker card. So what I'm going to add inside the shaker card, I originally had set aside some buttons thinking that would be fun, but I don't know if they're going to move. I think I have to do like a double or triple layer of foam. Yeah, because if that's glued down, they're not going to move. So I might do that in the future and double up this foam to give it room. But for now, what I'm going to do is just use some confetti. I was thinking the gold would be really pretty. These might be really pretty. These that look like kind of flowers. Oh yeah, that totally takes me back to my childhood, because our confetti was always really bright and vibrant. So I'm going to put in a nice big pinch of these. And actually, I have some foam little junk on there. So I'm going to put those. Let's see. Oh yeah, so pretty. All right, and I'm also going to add some of these. These are just teeny tiny little beads from the jewelry section. And I bought them on sale at, it was either Joann's or Michael's. All right, so I'm going to make sure those are in the center as much as possible. And these are going to give it that nice fun shaker sound. And I just realized I already goofed. I'm going to gently open this up. I want my card to be as flat as possible when I'm adhering everything. So make sure when you're doing yours that it's nice and flat, not folded over. Okay, and I don't want it too bunched up, even though I want it in the center, because what happens is when you end up gluing on your card, if it's bunched up, it'll end up almost making a little mountain and hit the acetate, and then it's really hard to get it to flatten out. Okay, and then I think I am going to add a little bit of the gold. I'm on a gold kick lately. I'm probably late to the gold party, but I am enjoying it quite a bit now. Oh yeah, that looks gorgeous. Oh, I love it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to put some adhesive all the way around. And this you want to get definitely nice and close here. So I'm going to go all along the edge. And then on this part of the edge, I'm actually going to use my finger to smush it around and make sure we have a nice even little layer. Try not to go into the side. Okay, that should be fantastic. And then I'm going to put that onto my card. Okay, and I'm not going to move this until it is completely set. And I'm going to really push down around where my foam piece meets, where the foam piece and the card come together. Really try and get a great seal on that so that nothing pops out. Okay, and had I not put my sentiment down quite yet, I would actually probably put this whole piece underneath a book to get a really nice, even, what's the word I'm looking for? To just make sure that it's nicely and evenly pressed down and sealed down. Right, I really love that. And then what I'm going to do is add just a couple of these actually on the outside of the card. Put a couple there and one here. And I'll just give it a nice finish. Maybe I'll even add one little gold one. Right, and these I will adhere, for these I'm going to adhere those down with small glue dots. Okay, so these are really small glue dots. I don't know if it says the actual size on there. It just says 300, oh, 6 millimeter. And this one, the glue dot's a little bit bigger, but I'm just going to end up tucking it in to itself, so it's all discreetly tucked in. Alright, I'm going to leave that, like I said, for a little bit longer, just because I don't want it to end up getting stuck into any of the glue that's still setting. So I'm going to set that one aside, and I'm going to work on the other ones. And I'll just fast forward this part since you've already seen how I made the other. all cards are finished, I added some more of the embellishments. So I'll show you, actually, here's the first one we did. So I definitely like it, but like I said, I kind of felt like the back being plain white, I don't know, it looks pretty, but I wanted some more color back there. So that was the first one we did, and then I had also raised the sentiment, the little flag sentiment on there. So you see how the stuff kind of shakes around. And then I like how these look just a touch better just because of the added color in the background. I'm a pretty colorful person, so I love that. Love the way it sounds and how it looks. And that looks really pretty. Next one. Alright, so I hope you learned something new and fun. I hope you enjoyed the card making, and if you make one, I'd love to see it. So please link up in the comments, either on my blog at clickychickcreates.com or on my YouTube channel. Alright, thank you so much. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and happy Easter. Bye-bye.
Happy Easter from Clicky Chick Creates. Bubba says that too.